Victoria Chen's hand connected with the garbage man's face before she even realized she'd moved. The crack echoed down Presidio Heights' pristine street, sharp as a gunshot. Marcus Thompson didn't flinch. Behind them, 7-year-old Emma dropped her stuffed rabbit, the same rabbit this stranger had rescued from the trash 6 months ago, and spoke for the first time in 3 years. Stop. One word. One impossible, miraculous word. But what drove a Silicon Valley mogul to assault a city worker at dawn? And why would a child who'd been silent since witnessing her father's death finally speak to defend the man her mother just struck? The answer lies in what happened when two broken families collided on the most unlikely corner of San Francisco. Drop a comment with your city below. I want to see how far Emma's story travels across America. 6 months earlier, Victoria Chen's alarm didn't wake her because she'd never actually slept. 4:17 a.m. She stared at the ceiling of her $12 million Pacific Heights mansion, counting the seconds between her daughter's breathing in the next room. Still there, still alive, still silent. She threw off the Egyptian cotton sheets and padded barefoot across heated marble floors to Emma's door. This was the ritual. Every morning for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Press her ear against the hand-carved oak. Listen for sounds that never came. No humming, no sleep-talking, no crying. Just the steady rhythm of breath that confirmed her daughter hadn't disappeared in the night like her father had. Victoria pushed the door open an inch. Emma lay curled around Thomas the rabbit, her father's last gift before the Tesla hit black ice on Highway 1. The rabbit was missing an eye now, its fur matted from being clutched through 1,000 nightmares. "I love you, baby girl," Victoria whispered into the darkness. "Today will be different. I promise." She'd made that promise 137 mornings in a row. Emma's eyes opened those Thomas Chen eyes, dark and knowing, and met her mother's. For a heartbeat, Victoria thought she saw her daughter's lips move. But Emma just pulled the rabbit closer and turned toward the wall. Victoria's chest tightened. She closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until she sat on the floor, her silk pajamas catching on the rough wood. Her phone vibrated. 43 emails since midnight. Tokyo wanted answers about the merger. The board demanded her presence at the emergency meeting. Her assistant needed approval for the press release about the quarterly earnings that would make Victoria the youngest female billionaire in Silicon Valley. None of it mattered. She pulled up her calendar. Today's appointments: Dr. Reeves at 10 a.m., child psychiatrist number 7 speech therapy at 2 p.m., method number 23, and dinner with Senator Morrison, who wanted to discuss Emma's inspiring journey for his campaign. Emma didn't have a journey. Emma had a prison made of silence, and Victoria was the warden who kept adding locks. Across the city in the Tenderloin district, Marcus Thompson was burning breakfast for the second time that week. Dad, Jordan, appeared in the kitchen doorway, all 13 years of him wrapped in a blanket, hair sticking up like he'd fought a tornado. "Did you kill the smoke alarm again?" It was being dramatic. Marcus waved a dish towel at the smoke curling from the toaster. Toast is supposed to be crispy. Toast is supposed to be edible. Jordan grabbed the cremated bread and tossed it in the sink. "This is a crime against breakfast." "Good thing we've got cereal." Marcus pulled out 2 chipped bowls from the cabinet, the one with the faded sunflowers Sarah had painted the year before she died. 4 years gone, and he still couldn't replace them. Jordan caught him staring. "Mom would have laughed at that toast." "Your mom laughed at everything I cooked. Woman married me for my personality, not my culinary skills." "What personality?" Jordan grinned, the smile that was pure Sarah, crooked and bright, and impossible to resist. Marcus threw a wadded paper towel at him. "The personality that's about to make you late for school. Move it." They ate standing at the counter because the kitchen table was covered in Marcus's textbooks, civil engineering courses he was taking online 2 classes at a time, fitting them between double shifts and Jordan's basketball games and the grief that still ambushed him in quiet moments. "You study last night?" Jordan asked, mouth full of Cheerios. "Until about 2. "Dad, you're gonna kill yourself." "Not planning on it. Planning on finishing this degree so I can stop picking up other people's trash and start designing systems that make less of it." Jordan went quiet the way he did when something was chewing at him. "Kenny's dad asked me yesterday why you don't work in an office. He said it in that voice, like he was asking why you don't have a real job." Marcus set down his spoon. "What did you tell him?" "I told him you work harder than any dad I know. That you work 2 jobs so I can stay at Sacred Heart instead of transferring. That you come to every game even when your shift ends at 7 and tip-offs at 7:30. And that Kenny's dad might wear a suit, but he missed Kenny's birthday because of a conference call." Jordan looked up, eyes fierce. "Was that okay?" Marcus reached across and gripped his son's shoulder. "More than okay. But you know what? Kenny's dad isn't wrong. I don't have an office. I haul garbage. And yeah, some people think that makes me less. But here's what I know: every job has dignity if you do it with purpose. I keep neighborhoods clean. I show up when it's raining or scorching or when my back's screaming at me. And I make sure you know that work isn't about prestige. It's about showing up for the people who count on you. Even if they look down on you. Especially then. Because how they see me is their problem. How I see me, that's mine. And how you see yourself, that's what matters most." Jordan nodded slowly. "I see you, Dad. I see you." The moment hung between them, thick with all the words they couldn't say, because men didn't even though they should. Marcus cleared his throat. "All right, enough, Oprah. Get dressed. I gotta drop you off before my route change takes effect." "Route change?" "Yeah, moving to Pacific Heights. Rich folks' trash day is Tuesday and Friday now." "Pacific Heights," Jordan whistled. "That's like Millionaire Row." "Billionaire Row. But their garbage smells the same as ours." Marcus grinned. "Though I hear they throw out some interesting stuff. Last guy found a working Rolex in the recycling." "Please tell me you're kidding." "Mostly kidding. Now move it before you're late, and Sister Margaret calls me about your tardiness again." Victoria stood in front of Emma's closet, holding up 2 dresses like she was deciding on battle armor. The lavender one made Emma look angelic for the photographers who occasionally camped outside their gate. The navy one had pockets Emma could hide her hands in when strangers tried to make her wave. Emma sat on the bed, already dressed in yesterday's jeans and a sweatshirt with a faded unicorn on it. The sweatshirt was Thomas's men's medium, hanging to her knees, smelling like him, because Victoria had sealed it in a garment bag with his cologne for 3 years before finally giving it to Emma. "Sweetie, Dr. Reeves is coming today. Don't you want to wear something nice?" Emma stared at the floor. "Or we could do the lavender with your white tights. You look so pretty and—" Victoria stopped. Listened to the words coming out of her mouth. When had pretty become more important than comfortable? She hung both dresses back up and sat beside Emma on the bed. "You're right. Wear whatever makes you feel safe." Emma's head turned slightly, not looking at Victoria, but acknowledging she'd been heard. "I know you don't want to see Dr. Reeves. I know you're tired of all the appointments and the exercises and everyone asking you to try harder." Victoria's voice cracked. "But baby, I don't know what else to do. I'm drowning here and I can't save you if you won't grab the rope." Emma picked up Thomas, straightened his bow tie, and tucked him under her arm. Then she walked out of the room, leaving Victoria sitting alone on the bed, wondering when she'd started thinking of her daughter as a problem to solve, instead of a person to love. Marcus's new route started at the bottom of Pacific Heights and wound up toward the Presidio. Houses here didn't have numbers, they had names. The Standish Estate. Côte d'Azur. Chen Manor. Chen Manor stopped him cold. The gate was 15 feet of wrought iron and gold leaf, the kind that said, "Keep out," in 12 different languages. Behind it, a mansion rose like something from a Gothic novel, all sharp angles and dark windows. The front garden alone was bigger than Marcus's entire apartment building. He whistled low. This is where they're hiding the American dream behind this much metal. His partner Luis laughed. Man, for people this rich, we're the American dream. We clean up their messes so they don't have to. Marcus grabbed the first bin, heavier than it should be for a house with only 2 residents according to the route sheet. He wheeled it to the truck and popped the lid. Inside takeout containers from restaurants he'd need a month's salary to eat at. Shopping bags with tags still on them. Boxes from tech companies barely opened. A child's drawing crumpled of stick figures holding hands. He pulled out the drawing, smoothed it against his leg. 3 figures, one tall with long dark hair, one small with pigtails, one taller with short dark hair and a smile drawn in thick crayon. Above it in shaky letters, before. Before. Marcus knew about before. Before Sarah died. Before Jordan stopped laughing for 6 months. Before Marcus learned that the only way through grief was straight down its throat. He tucked the drawing in his pocket. He'd give it to Jordan, show him that other kids hurt too, and started to empty the bin when he heard it. A small, choked sound. Crying, but trying not to. He turned. Behind the gate, partially hidden by a marble column, a little girl stood frozen. Maybe 7 or 8, wearing a too big sweatshirt and clutching a stuffed rabbit, like it was the only thing keeping her on earth. Her face was blotchy eyes, red and swollen. She wasn't crying anymore. She was past crying into that airless space where grief lives. Their eyes met. Marcus did what Sarah always told him to do. When you see someone hurting, acknowledge it. "Rough morning?" he asked gently. The girl's eyes widened. People probably didn't talk to her much. Or if they did, they talked at her bright voices, asking how she was doing. "Are you okay? Can you say hi? Just one word?" She nodded. Barely. But it was something. "Yeah, I feel that. Some mornings are just..." Marcus trailed off, searching for words a kid would understand. Some mornings the sadness wins. And that's okay. Sadness isn't bad. It just means something mattered enough to hurt when it changed. The girl took a step closer to the gate, still clutching the rabbit. She pointed at it, then at the trash bin Marcus had just opened. His stomach dropped. "Wait, is that yours? The rabbit?" She nodded frantically, tears spilling over again. "Oh no, 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 hold on." Marcus moved to the bin, started digging through the bags and boxes. "What's his name or her name?" The girl opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again, face scrunching with effort, but only silence followed. Marcus understood before she had to explain. "It's okay, you don't have to tell me. Let's just find him." "Yeah?" He pulled out bag after bag, coffee grounds, shredded documents, broken electronics until his hand closed on something soft. He pulled out a stuffed rabbit missing one button eye, wearing a tiny bow tie that said Thomas in faded stitching. "This him, Thomas." The girl's whole body sagged with relief. She pressed against the gate, reaching through the bars, hands grasping. Marcus looked at the rabbit, looked at the girl, looked at the mansion behind her with its perfect garden and its perfect silence and its perfectly broken child. He walked to the gate, crouched down, and carefully brushed the coffee grounds off Thomas's ears. "He's okay. Got a little dirty, but he's a tough guy, right? I can tell by the bow tie. That's a serious bow tie." He passed Thomas through the bars. The girl grabbed him, buried her face in his fur, and started to cry, deep gulping sobs that shook her whole body. Hey, he's safe now. You're both safe." Marcus stayed crouched eye level with her. "You know what, my son Jordan has a bear kind of like this. Her name is Hope. His mom gave her to him before she..." He paused, chose his words carefully. "Before she had to go away. And Jordan talks to Hope all the time. Tells her things he can't tell anyone else. Because sometimes stuffed animals are the safest friends we have." The girl looked up at him. Really looked. Her tears slowed. She pointed at Marcus, then at herself, then hugged Thomas tighter. "You're asking if I understand." Marcus smiled softly. "Yeah, kiddo. I understand. Losing people hurts, and sometimes words they're not big enough for that kind of hurt. So we stay quiet, because quiet feels safer than saying the wrong thing." She nodded so hard her whole body moved. "But here's what Jordan taught me. Hope is bare. She doesn't need him to talk. She just needs him to hold her. And sometimes that's enough. You holding Thomas? That's enough. You don't owe anybody words. Not me. Not anyone." For the first time, the girl's face softened. She pointed at Marcus's uniform, then at Thomas, then put her hand over her heart. Marcus understood. "You're welcome. And yeah, I'll be back. Tuesday and Friday mornings right here. So if Thomas ever needs rescuing again, I got you." The girl smiled. Small, brief, but real. Marcus stood tipped an imaginary hat and headed back to the truck. He was loading the last bag when he felt eyes on him. He glanced up at the mansion. In a second-floor window, a woman stood watching. Tall, elegant, even in what looked like pajamas, dark hair pulled back. Her hand pressed against the glass like she wanted to reach through it. Their eyes met for a split second. Hers were full of something Marcus recognized from his own mirror desperation. Then she was gone. Luis called from the driver's seat. "Yo, Mark, we're burning daylight." Marcus climbed into the truck, but he kept thinking about that little girl. About the drawing that said before. About the woman in the window who looked like she was watching her world from the wrong side of the glass. And he thought about what Sarah used to say. Sometimes God puts people in your path not because they can help you, but because you can help them. Marcus didn't know if he believed in God anymore, but he believed in showing up, in kindness, in the small moments that remind people they're seen. Tuesday and Friday mornings, right there at that gate, he'd show up. Victoria watched from her office as the garbage truck pulled away. She'd seen the whole thing, Emma running outside in her socks, the worker stopping the conversation. She couldn't hear the way Emma had smiled. Emma hadn't smiled at Victoria in 3 years. Not at Dr. Reeves, or the speech therapist, or the art therapist, or the music therapist, or the equine therapist, or Senator Morrison's carefully practiced, concerned face. But she'd smiled at a garbage collector. Victoria pulled up her phone, fingers trembling as she typed into the search bar, Pacific Heights sanitation routes. Then, city employee directory. Then, background check services. She stopped, read what she'd just typed, heard how it sounded in her head. This was what she'd become. A woman so desperate for control that she wanted to investigate someone whose only crime was being kind to her daughter. She deleted the searches, closed her laptop, and for the first time in 3 years, 2 months and 16 days, Victoria Chen did something she hadn't allowed herself to do. She cried. Not silent, dignified tears. Ugly crying. The kind that came from somewhere deep and jagged where she'd buried the truth she couldn't face. She had no idea how to save her daughter because she had no idea how to save herself. Downstairs, Emma sat in the kitchen with Thomas replaying the conversation with the garbage man. His voice had been warm. Not the bright fake warm adults used when they talked to her like she was broken. Real warm. The kind that felt like sunshine after a long winter. He'd said she didn't owe anybody words. Nobody had ever said that before. Emma pulled Thomas close and whispered so quietly, even she could barely hear it. Marcus. His name was Marcus. 3 words. The first she'd spoken in 137 days. And somewhere between the mansion's marble floors and the garbage truck rolling down Pacific Heights, 2 broken families had just collided in the smallest, most powerful way possible. Neither Victoria nor Marcus knew it yet, but everything had just changed. The clock on the wall ticked past 800 a.m., Tuesday morning, the first of many. And in the kitchen, Emma began to hum. The humming stopped the moment Victoria entered the kitchen. Emma's head snapped up, eyes wide like she'd been caught stealing. Thomas dangled from one hand, his missing button eye, seeming to stare accusingly at Victoria. "Baby." Victoria's voice came out too careful, the way you'd speak to a wild animal you didn't want to spook. Were you humming?" Emma's jaw clenched. She shook her head hard, then slid off the kitchen stool and bolted toward the stairs. "Emma, wait!" But she was gone. Footsteps thundering up to her room door, slamming hard enough to rattle the chandelier in the foyer. Victoria stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by marble and stainless steel, and the echoing silence of a house that had forgotten how to breathe. She pressed her palms against the counter, knuckles white. Maria appeared in the doorway, the housekeeper's soft footsteps almost apologetic. "Senora Victoria, Dr. Reeves called. He's running 30 minutes late." "Cancel it." "Senora, cancel all of Emma's appointments today. Tell them she's not feeling well." Maria's eyebrows lifted slightly, but she nodded. 23 years working for the Chen family had taught her when to ask questions and when to simply obey. "Si, senora. Anything else?" Victoria stared at the space where Emma had been sitting. "Did you see her this morning? Did she seem different?" "She went outside, senora, in her socks. I tried to stop her, but she ran to the gate. I was about to go after her when I saw the sanitation worker. He was very kind to her, very gentle. I watched from the window to make sure she was safe. And then she came back inside. She was holding that rabbit like it was made of gold. And she was—" Maria paused, choosing her words carefully. "She looked happy, senora. Not the smile she gives to make us feel better. Real happiness." Victoria's throat tightened. "Thank you, Maria. That's all." After Maria left, Victoria pulled out her phone again. This time, she didn't stop herself. She opened her browser and searched Marcus Thompson San Francisco Sanitation. Nothing came up except the city employee directory, sparse information, no photo, just a route assignment and a hire date from 4 years ago. She tried Facebook. 17 Marcus Thompsons in the Bay Area. None in the right age range. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Nothing. The man was a ghost in the digital age. Either incredibly private or too poor to maintain a social media presence. Both options made Victoria uncomfortable because they reminded her how different their worlds were. She was about to give up when she found a mention in an archived article from the San Francisco Chronicle, 4 years old. Sanitation Department honors employee who rescued elderly neighbor from fire. She clicked the link. There was a grainy photo, a black man in his mid-30s, broad-shouldered, wearing his orange work uniform, arm around an elderly white woman who was crying with relief. The caption read, "Marcus Thompson, 32, risked his life to pull his neighbor Martha Kowalski from her burning apartment in the Tenderloin district." Thompson, a single father and sanitation worker, says he was just doing what anyone would do. The article continued, Thompson's wife Sarah passed away from cancer last year, leaving him to raise their 9-year-old son Jordan alone. Despite working 2 jobs to make ends meet, Thompson volunteers weekly at the Boys and Girls Club and is pursuing an engineering degree online. Victoria read it 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and pressed her hands against her eyes until colors bloomed in the darkness. This was who she'd been about to background check like a criminal. A man who ran into fires to save people. A widower raising a son alone while working 2 jobs and going to school. A man who'd shown Emma more genuine compassion in 5 minutes than Victoria's entire team of specialists had managed in 3 years. Upstairs, a door opened. Closed softly. Footsteps in the hallway, Emma's distinctive light tread. Then, nothing. Victoria waited, hoping Emma would come downstairs. When she didn't, Victoria made herself coffee she wouldn't drink and stared at her phone, avoiding the 62 new emails because they all felt meaningless next to the sound of her daughter humming. 3 days passed before Friday arrived and Marcus returned. Victoria didn't admit she was waiting. She told herself she just happened to be in her office at 7:30 a.m. Just happened to have her window open. Just happened to be watching when the green sanitation truck pulled up to her gate at exactly 7:47. Emma had been awake since 6. Victoria knew because she'd heard her daughter's door open, heard the soft padding of feet down the hallway, heard the back door to the garden creak open for the first time in months. When Victoria looked out, Emma was sitting on the front steps in her unicorn sweatshirt, Thomas in her lap waiting. Marcus climbed out of the truck, waved to his partner, and headed for the first bin. He didn't see Emma until he'd already started wheeling it to the truck. Then he stopped, turned, and broke into a smile that Victoria could see from her second-floor window. "Well, good morning, Miss Emma. Fancy meeting you here." Emma's face lit up. She stood clutching Thomas and walked to the gate. This time she wasn't crying. This time she was eager. "Thomas doing okay?" Marcus asked, approaching the bars. "No more adventures in the trash?" Emma nodded hard, held up the rabbit to show he was clean and safe. "Good. See, I told you he was tough. That bow tie isn't just for show." Marcus crouched down to her eye level again, the same easy movement he'd made Tuesday. "You know what Jordan asked about you?" Emma's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Yeah, I told him about you and Thomas. Told him I met a girl who's really good at listening. Jordan said that's a superpower. Most people talk too much and listen too little." Emma pointed at Marcus, then at herself, then pressed both hands to her ears. Marcus laughed. "You're right. I do talk a lot. But you know what I like that you listen. Makes me feel like the words I'm saying actually matter. Not everybody makes you feel that way." Emma tilted her head considering this. Then she pointed at the truck, made a stirring motion with her hands, wrinkled her nose. "Does it smell bad?" Marcus grinned. "Some days worse than others. But you know what's funny? I used to think this job was temporary. Something to pay bills while I figured out my real career. But then I realized everywhere I go, people need their trash picked up. And most people won't do it. They think it's beneath them. But trash has to go somewhere, right? So why not do it with pride?" Emma nodded slowly. She pointed at her chest, then at the mansion behind her, then made a face like she'd tasted something bitter. Marcus's expression softened. "You feel trapped in there?" Emma's eyes widened. She nodded so hard, her whole body moved. "Yeah. Big houses can feel like that. All that space but nowhere to breathe. Jordan and we've got a tiny apartment. 2 bedrooms, kitchen so small you can't open the fridge and the oven at the same time. But it's ours, you know. It's full of life. Messy, loud, real life." Emma put Thomas down carefully on the ground, then held her hands wide apart, then brought them close together, then pointed at the space between the small gap. "You're saying—" Marcus thought for a moment. "You're saying small spaces can hold big love, but big spaces can feel empty." Emma nodded frantically, picked up Thomas again, hugged him tight. "Man, you're wise for 7 years old. How old are you anyway?" Emma held up 7 fingers. 7. Same age Jordan was when his mom died. That was a hard year. He stopped talking for a while too. Not completely, he'd talk to me when he had to. But all the joy went out of his words, like he was saying things just to get through the day, not because he meant them. Emma pointed at herself, then covered her mouth. "You stopped talking completely." She nodded. "How long?" Emma held up 3 fingers, then pointed at the sky. 3 years. Marcus's voice went soft. "Aw, sweetheart. 3 years is a long time to carry that weight alone." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She pointed at Marcus, then at her heart, then made a breaking motion with her hands. "Someone you loved died." Emma nodded, tears spilling over. She pointed at Thomas's bow tie, then at the mansion, then up at the sky again. Marcus understood. "Your dad, the one who gave you Thomas." Emma crumpled. She sat right there on the ground, pulled her knees to her chest, and sobbed silently into Thomas's fur. Marcus looked around desperately. Luis was still loading the truck 50 feet away. The mansion loomed behind Emma, massive and silent. No one was coming to help. He made a decision that would change everything. "Emma, look at me." She lifted her head, face blotchy and wet. "Can you reach your hand through the bars?" She hesitated, then extended her hand through the gap in the gate. Marcus reached through from his side. Their fingers didn't quite touch, the gap was too wide. But they both stretched, reaching toward each other. Two people separated by metal and money and circumstance, trying to bridge the space between them. "I can't touch your hand," Marcus said gently. "But I can promise you something. You ready?" Emma nodded. "You are not alone. Do you hear me? I know it feels like you are. I know the sadness makes everything feel big and scary and too much. But you are not alone. Your dad? He's not gone. Not really. He's right here." Marcus pointed at Thomas. "And here." He pointed at Emma's heart. "Love doesn't die when people do. It just changes shape. Your dad's love is in that rabbit, in this house, in every memory you have of him. And that love, it's strong enough to carry you through this." Emma wiped her eyes with her free hand, the other still stretched toward Marcus through the bars. "And here's what else I know. You're gonna talk again when you're ready. Not because a doctor tells you to. Not because your mom needs you to. But because one day you'll have something so important to say that the words will just come out. And until then, I'll be right here every Tuesday and Friday, listening to everything you don't say." Emma pulled her hand back slowly. She picked up Thomas, straightened his bow tie, and looked at Marcus with an expression that was somehow both heartbroken and hopeful. Then she did something that stopped Marcus cold. She opened her mouth and mouthed two words, no sound coming out, but her lips forming the shapes clearly, "Thank you." Marcus felt his eyes burn. "You're welcome, brave girl. You're so welcome." Luis called from the truck. "Mark, we gotta move." Marcus stood reluctantly. "I'll see you Tuesday, okay?" "Same time, same place." Emma nodded. She waved with Thomas's paw. Then she stood and walked back toward the mansion, turning every few steps to make sure Marcus was still there. He stayed until she disappeared inside. Victoria watched the entire exchange from her window. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw everything else. The way Emma had sat on the ground and cried. The way Marcus had reached through the bars trying to touch her hand. The way Emma had mouthed those two words. "Thank you." Victoria's hand was pressed so hard against the window that when she finally pulled away, her palm print stayed on the glass, a ghost of her presence already fading. She walked downstairs in a daze. Emma was in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, arranging her crayons by color. Thomas sat propped against the fruit bowl, his one button eye watching. "Baby." Emma's shoulders tensed, but she didn't run. Progress. Victoria sat down carefully on the stool next to her, leaving one empty stool between them. Space. Emma always needed space. "I saw you outside with the garbage man. Marcus, is it?" Emma's head whipped around, eyes wide and panicked. "It's okay," Victoria said quickly. "I'm not mad, I saw you talking to him. Well, not talking, but communicating. And I saw you smile." Emma looked down at her crayons, picked up the blue one, put it down, picked up the green one. "Emma, I need to ask you something. And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. You can nod or shake your head or just ignore me, whatever feels right." Emma stopped moving, waiting. "Do you like talking to Marcus?" Emma nodded immediately. Firmly. "Does he make you feel safe?" Another nod, this one slower, more thoughtful. Victoria's voice cracked. "Does he make you feel safer than I do?" Emma's hand froze over the crayons. She turned to look at her mother, really look at her for the first time in months. Then slowly she nodded. The honesty hit Victoria like a physical blow, but she forced herself to keep going. "Why? What does he do that I don't?" Emma picked up a purple crayon and pulled a piece of paper toward her. She drew quickly a stick figure with long hair, a speech bubble coming from its mouth filled with scribbles. Then another stick figure with short hair and above it an empty speech bubble. She pushed the paper to Victoria. "I talk too much." Victoria translated her voice hollow. "And he listens without talking." Emma nodded. Victoria stared at the drawing at the scribbled speech bubble that represented 3 years of therapy appointments and worried questions, and desperate pleas for Emma to just say one word, any word. "Please, baby, just try." "I've been hurting you," Victoria whispered. "By trying to fix you. Haven't I?" Emma didn't nod this time. She just picked up Thomas and hugged him, which was somehow worse than confirmation. Victoria wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to rewind 3 years and do everything differently. But she couldn't. So instead she did the only thing she could think of. "Okay," she said. "Okay. No more appointments. No more pressure. No more asking you to talk." Emma's head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. "I mean it. You talk when you're ready. And if you're never ready, then I'll learn to understand you without words, like Marcus does." Emma stared at her mother like she was speaking a foreign language. "I can't promise I'll be good at it right away," Victoria admitted. "I'm used to fixing things, building things, controlling things. But you're not a problem to fix, baby. You're my daughter. And I've been so scared of losing you that I forgot how to just be with you." Emma set Thomas down. She picked up a red crayon and drew a small heart on the paper right between the 2 stick figures. Then she slid the paper back to Victoria. Victoria looked at the heart, looked at her daughter. "Is that for me? Or for Marcus?" Emma picked up another crayon orange and drew a 3rd stick figure on the paper. This one was wearing what looked like a uniform. She drew a line connecting all 3 figures through the heart. "All of us." Victoria's voice broke. "You want all of us connected." Emma nodded. Then she did something extraordinary. She reached across the empty stool between them and touched her mother's hand. Just for a second. Just long enough for Victoria to feel the warmth of her daughter's skin. Then she pulled back, picked up Thomas, and went upstairs. Victoria sat alone in the kitchen staring at the drawing. 3 stick figures connected by a heart. A billionaire, a garbage man, and a silent child. It was the most ridiculous, impossible, beautiful thing she'd ever seen. She pulled out her phone, searched San Francisco Department of Public Works. Found the main number, dialed before she could talk herself out of it. "Public Works, how may I direct your call?" "Yes, I need to speak to someone about one of your sanitation employees. Marcus Thompson, Route 447, Pacific Heights." A pause. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" "No, no problem. I need to know his schedule. What days he works my route." "Let me transfer you to HR." Hold music. Victoria's heart hammered. What was she doing? Why was she doing this? Because Emma had drawn a heart connecting them. Because Marcus Thompson had made her daughter feel safe when Victoria couldn't. Because maybe, just maybe, there was something here worth exploring, even if it made no sense. Human Resources, this is Pam. "Hi, yes, I'm calling about Marcus Thompson. He works sanitation in Pacific Heights. I need to verify his schedule." "Are you a family member?" "No, He services my property. I need to know what days to expect him." "Let me pull up his file." Keyboard clicking. "Mr. Thompson works Tuesday and Friday mornings on Route 447. Usually arrives at properties between 7:30 and 9:00 a.m., depending on traffic and volume. Is there an issue with his service?" "No, the opposite. I wanted to commend him. He's been very professional." "Oh well, we don't get many calls like that. Would you like to leave a formal commendation for his file?" Victoria hesitated. "Maybe. Can you tell me how long he's worked for the city?" 4 years this November. Perfect attendance except for 1 week in 2020 when his son was in the hospital. Wait, I'm not supposed to share that. Privacy regulations. His son was in the hospital. I really can't. It's okay. Thank you for your help. Victoria hung up, stared at her phone, Googled Jordan Thompson, San Francisco Hospital 2020. Nothing came up except an obituary. Sarah Thompson, 34. Beloved wife and mother passed away after a courageous battle with cancer. Survived by her husband, Marcus Thompson, and son, Jordan Thompson. The date, September 2020. 4 years ago. Victoria did the math. Jordan would have been 9 when his mother died. The same age Emma had been when Thomas died. She thought about Marcus reaching through the gate trying to touch Emma's hand. Thought about him saying, "Jordan, stop talking," for a while too. Thought about the easy way he'd knelt down and met Emma at her level. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. He knew. He understood. Not theoretically the way Dr. Reeves understood with his degrees and his research, but in his bones, in his blood, in the scar tissue around his heart. Victoria looked at Emma's drawing again, the orange stick figure connecting them all. Maybe this wasn't ridiculous. Maybe it was exactly what Emma needed, what they all needed. But first, Victoria had to do something she'd never done before. Something that terrified her more than quarterly earnings reports or hostile takeovers or speeches in front of thousands. She had to admit she didn't have all the answers. She had to ask for help, and the person she needed to ask was a garbage man who'd somehow become her daughter's lifeline in the space of 2 conversations. Tuesday couldn't come fast enough. Tuesday morning came with fog so thick Marcus could barely see 10 feet in front of the truck. Luis grumbled about the weather slowing them down, but Marcus didn't mind. The fog made everything feel quieter, softer, like the city was holding its breath. They were running 20 minutes behind schedule when they finally pulled up to the Chen mansion. Marcus checked his watch, 8:07. He wondered if Emma would still be waiting. She was. Through the fog and the ornate gate, he could just make out her small figure sitting on the front steps. Same unicorn sweatshirt, same rabbit clutched to her chest. But something was different. She wasn't alone. Victoria Chen stood beside her daughter, arms crossed, wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. Even in casual clothes, she radiated that particular kind of tension that came from wealth and power and the bone-deep fear of losing control. Marcus's stomach tightened. Here it comes, he thought. The talk. The boundary setting. The polite but firm, "Thank you for your kindness, but please don't engage with my daughter anymore." He'd been through it before, well-meaning people who got uncomfortable when Marcus connected too easily with their kids. Single dad, garbage collector, black man in a rich white neighborhood. The math added up to threat in a lot of people's minds, even if they'd never admit it. But he'd made Emma a promise. Tuesday and Friday, he'd show up. Marcus climbed out of the truck and grabbed the first bin, wheeled it over. Victoria's eyes tracked his every movement. Emma's face lit up when she saw him, but she didn't move from the steps. Waiting for permission, Marcus realized. Waiting to see what her mother would do. "Good morning," Marcus said, keeping his voice neutral and professional. "Fog's bad today. Sorry we're running late." "Mr. Thompson?" Victoria's voice was cool, controlled. "I'd like to speak with you, if you have a moment." There it was. Marcus set the bin down carefully. "Yes, ma'am. Of course." Emma's eyes went wide. She clutched Thomas tighter, looked from her mother to Marcus and back again. Victoria noticed. "Emma, go inside. I need to talk to Mr. Thompson privately." Emma shook her head hard. She stood up, but planted her feet on the steps, chin raised in defiance Marcus had to admire. "Emma, I'm not asking." Emma shook her head again. Then she walked to the gate and pressed herself against it, as close to Marcus as she could get. A human shield, Marcus realized. She was trying to protect him from whatever her mother was about to say. Something in Victoria's expression cracked. "Baby, I'm not going to hurt him. I just want to talk." Emma pointed at her mother, then made a pushing motion with her hands. "Go away. I'm not going anywhere. This is our house and I have a right to—" Victoria stopped herself. drew a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "You know what? You can stay. You should hear this too." Marcus waited, every muscle tense. Emma didn't move. Victoria looked at Marcus through the bars of the gate. "I saw you last Friday, with Emma. I saw the whole conversation." "Yes, ma'am." "You made my daughter cry." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to upset her. We were talking about loss, and I'm not finished." Victoria's voice sharpened. "You made her cry. And then you made her feel heard. And then you made her smile. And in 3 years of the best therapy money can buy, no one has managed to do all 3 of those things in the span of 10 minutes. Marcus blinked. That wasn't where he'd expected this to go. Victoria's hands uncrossed, then crossed again, like she didn't know what to do with them. "My daughter drew a picture yesterday, 3 stick figures connected by a heart. Me, her, and you. And I don't know what to do with that, Mr. Thompson. I don't know what it means that my 7-year-old daughter trusts a stranger more than she trusts me. I'm not trying to replace you, ma'am. I know that. Logically, I know that. But logic doesn't help when you've spent 3 years watching your child disappear into silence, and then suddenly she's talking not talking, but communicating with someone she's met twice. Someone who knows nothing about her history or her trauma or her father." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "She told me about him, about Thomas, about the accident." Victoria's face went pale. "She told you how she doesn't speak." She pointed at the rabbit's bow tie, pointed at your house, pointed at the sky. I put it together. Lost my wife 4 years ago, so I recognize the shape of that grief. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Not softening exactly, but recalibrating. "You're a widower." "Yes, ma'am. My son was 9 when his mom died. Same age Emma was when she lost her dad, from what I've pieced together." Victoria pressed her hand against her forehead, suddenly looking exhausted. "I didn't know. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for yours too. And for Emma's. That's a heavy weight for a kid to carry." She won't talk about it. Won't talk about anything. 3 years of therapy, and she's never said a word about the accident, or her father, or how she feels. Just nothing. Marcus glanced at Emma, who was watching the exchange with fierce attention. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am." "That's what I'm asking for." Maybe she won't talk about it because every time she tries there's a therapist with a notepad waiting to analyze it. Or a mother who needs her to be okay so badly that Emma feels like she has to protect you from how not okay she really is. Victoria flinched like he'd slapped her. I'm not saying you meant to, but grief in kids looks different than grief in adults. Kids don't process it, they survive it. And sometimes surviving means going quiet because talking makes it too real. So what am I supposed to do? Just let her stay silent forever? No. You're supposed to sit with her in the silence until she's ready to fill it. Not because you need her to talk, because she needs to know the silence is okay. That she's okay even without words. Victoria's eyes glistened. She looked at Emma, who was still pressed against the gate watching them both. "Is that what you did with your son?" "Eventually. But first I made every mistake you're probably making. Pushed too hard. Tried to force him back to normal. Kept asking if he was okay when I really meant, please be okay so I don't have to feel like I'm failing you. Took me 6 months to figure out that Jordan didn't need me to fix him. He needed me to sit on his bedroom floor and let him cry without trying to make it better." "How long did it take?" "Before he talked again." "About 8 months. But here's the thing, when he finally spoke, it wasn't because I'd done anything right. It was because his bear fell behind the radiator, and he couldn't reach it, and he was so frustrated he yelled, 'Dad, help!' And then he just kept talking, like the dam had broken." Emma made a small sound. Both adults turned to look at her. She was pointing at Marcus, then at her own throat, then making a breaking motion with her hands. Marcus smiled sadly. Yeah, sweetheart. That's exactly right. Sometimes the words get stuck behind the dam, and they'll come out when the pressure gets strong enough. But you can't force a dam to break. You just have to wait and trust that water always finds its way through eventually. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. What if it never breaks? What if she never talks again? Then you learn her language, sign language, pictures, music, whatever works. Because communication isn't about words, Mrs. Chen. It's about being understood. And Emma understands just fine. She's not broken. She's just speaking a different language than you're listening for. Victoria was crying now, not trying to hide it. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to stop trying to fix her. You start by asking yourself why you need her fixed. Is it for her? Or is it because her silence reminds you of everything you lost when your husband died? The question hung in the air like the morning fog. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Both, she finally admitted. It's both. When she talks, I'll know she's okay. And if she's okay, then maybe I didn't fail her. Maybe I'm not a terrible mother who let her daughter drown in grief while I was busy building an empire to prove I could survive without him. Marcus's expression softened. Ma'am, can I tell you something? You being here right now talking to a garbage man about your daughter's pain, that's not failure. That's courage. Most people with your money and your power would have just called the city and complained to have me removed from your route. But you're here, asking questions, listening. That's what Emma needs. Not a perfect mother, just a present one. Victoria looked at Emma, who was watching her mother with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Hope, maybe. Or fear that this moment would evaporate like the fog. Can I ask you something, Mr. Thompson? Marcus, please. Marcus, would you be willing to keep talking to her? I know that's an enormous thing to ask. I know you have a job to do and a life, and I have no right to ask anything from you. But she responds to you in a way she doesn't respond to anyone else. And I'm not too proud to admit I need help, even if that help comes from someone I never expected. Marcus thought about Jordan, about the scholarship applications he needed to submit, about the engineering midterm he hadn't studied for because he'd been working double shifts, about how complicated his life already was without adding a billionaire's traumatized daughter to the mix. Then he looked at Emma's face, at the desperate hope in her eyes, at the way she was gripping the gate bars so hard her knuckles were white. I can't promise miracles, he said finally. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who's been where you are and knows what helped and what didn't. That's more than I have right now. And I can't commit to anything beyond what I'm already doing. Tuesday and Friday mornings, 10 minutes at the gate. That's all I've got to give. I've got my own kid who needs me and school and work. I understand. Whatever you can offer, I'm grateful. Emma released the gate and started jumping up and down, Thomas bouncing in her arms. She pointed at Marcus, then at Victoria, then at herself, then made a circle with her arms. Together. Yeah, baby. Victoria's voice broke. Together. All of us. We're going to figure this out together. Marcus checked his watch. They were now 35 minutes behind schedule. Luis was going to kill him. I need to get back to work, but I'll see you Friday, Emma. Same time. Emma nodded so hard her whole body shook. Then she did something that stopped both adults in their tracks. She raised her hand to her lips, kissed her fingers, and blew the kiss toward Marcus through the gate. Marcus felt his throat close up. He caught the imaginary kiss, pressed it to his heart, and blew one back to her. She caught it with both hands, pressed it to Thomas's head, and smiled that heartbreaking smile that said more than words ever could. Victoria watched the exchange, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time since her husband died, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that none of them had expected, but all of them needed. Tuesday and Friday mornings, Emma waited at the gate. Sometimes Victoria stood with her. Sometimes she watched from the window. But she was always there, listening, learning the language of silence her daughter spoke so fluently. Marcus kept his promises. 10 minutes at the gate. Never longer. He had a job to do, but never shorter either. He told Emma stories about Jordan, about his engineering classes, about his childhood in Oakland, about his wife Sarah, and the way she used to sing while cooking breakfast. Emma soaked it all in. She started leaving drawings on the windowsill for Marcus to find. Pictures of the garbage truck. Pictures of Thomas and Hope the bear meeting each other. Pictures of Marcus and Jordan and Emma and Victoria, all standing under a rainbow that looked more like a scribbled blob but felt like everything. Victoria started joining the conversations. Awkwardly at first, she was used to boardrooms and conference calls, not casual chats through iron bars with a sanitation worker. But Marcus had a gift for making people feel comfortable. He asked her about her work, her childhood, what Thomas had been like as a husband and father. He was the loud one, Victoria admitted one Tuesday morning, Emma sitting between them listening. I was the serious one, the planner. He was spontaneous. Used to drive me crazy. He'd come home and announce we were going to Big Sur for the weekend. No planning, just go. And I'd panic about all the meetings I'd have to cancel. But Emma loved it, loved her dad's chaos. Emma nodded hard. She picked up a stick and drew in the dirt, a car, a road, mountains. We took her to Yosemite 3 weeks before the accident. Victoria continued, her voice distant. Thomas wanted to show her the waterfalls. We hiked 4 miles, Emma riding on his shoulders half the time, singing made-up songs about bears and butterflies. And I spent the whole time checking my phone, answering emails, half present. I thought we'd have forever. I thought there'd be time later to put work aside and just be with them. Marcus's voice was gentle. You didn't know. I should have. I should have known every moment was precious. But I was building the company, and Thomas had Emma, and it seemed like I could have both if I just worked hard enough. And then he was gone, and I realized I'd traded presence for success, and it was the worst deal I'd ever made. Emma touched her mother's hand through the bars. Just for a second. Victoria caught her breath. She forgives you, Marcus said quietly. Kids always forgive their parents faster than parents forgive themselves. How do you know? Because Jordan told me the same thing 6 months after Sarah died. I apologized to him for being a mess, for all the times I cried in front of him, or couldn't get out of bed, or fed him cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row. And you know what he said? He said, Dad, you're sad. That's okay. I'm sad too. We can be sad together. Marcus's voice roughened. Kids don't need perfect parents. They need real ones. Victoria wiped her eyes. Emma was watching her mother with an intensity that felt like prayer. Can I tell you something I've never said out loud? Victoria whispered. Of course. I'm angry at him. At Thomas, for dying, for leaving me alone with a daughter I don't know how to reach, for making me be both parents when I barely knew how to be one. And I feel horrible for being angry because he didn't choose to die, and he was a wonderful father, and Emma adored him. But I'm so angry I could scream. Emma's eyes widened. She looked at Marcus, then back at her mother. Marcus nodded slowly. That's grief. The anger stage. It's normal. Have you told Emma you're angry? God, no, I can't put that on her. Why not? She's angry too. Aren't you, sweetheart? Emma hesitated, then nodded, firmly. See, you're both carrying the same weight. Maybe it's time you carried it together instead of pretending neither of you is struggling. Victoria looked at her daughter, really looked at her, saw the tension in her small shoulders, the way she clutched Thomas like a life raft, the sadness that lived in her eyes even when she smiled. You're angry at Daddy too? Victoria asked softly. Emma nodded, then pointed at the sky. You're angry at him for leaving. Another nod. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Me too, baby. Me too. And you know what? That's okay. We're allowed to be angry. We're allowed to miss him and be mad at him at the same time. Love isn't just the happy parts. It's all the messy, complicated, painful parts too. Emma climbed onto her mother's lap, right there on the front steps. She buried her face in Victoria's neck and started to cry, huge gulping sobs that shook her whole body. Victoria wrapped her arms around her daughter and held on crying too, and Marcus turned away to give them privacy. He wheeled the trash bin to the truck loaded. It came back for the second one. By the time he returned to the gate, Emma had cried herself out. She was still in Victoria's lap, exhausted and red-faced, but something had shifted. The tension was gone. For the first time in 3 years, she looked like she was exactly where she belonged. "Thank you," Victoria mouthed to Marcus over Emma's head. Marcus just nodded. "See you Friday." But Friday brought something neither of them expected. Marcus and Luis pulled up to the Chen mansion at 7:52 a.m. to find a man with a camera standing across the street. Professional setup, long lens, expensive equipment, not a tourist. "Aw, hell," Luis muttered. "That's a paparazzo." Marcus's stomach sank. Since when do garbage men rate paparazzi attention? We don't, but billionaires do. Especially ones who are letting their kid hang out with sanitation workers. Someone probably tipped them off that there's a story here. Marcus climbed out of the truck slowly. Emma was already at the gate, Victoria standing behind her. Both of them had seen the photographer. Victoria's jaw was tight, her body language screaming tension. "Good morning," Marcus said carefully. "Good morning." Victoria's voice was clipped. "We need to talk. Later. Not here." Emma looked confused. She pointed at Marcus, then at the photographer, then at her mother. "It's fine, baby," Victoria said, but her tone suggested it was anything but fine. "Go inside. Now." Emma shook her head. She planted herself at the gate, defiant. "Emma, I'm not asking. Inside. This isn't safe." Marcus understood. The photographer was already clicking away, capturing every moment. By tonight, these photos would be on some gossip site with a headline that made Victoria's parenting look questionable at best, negligent at worst. "Emma," Marcus said gently, "your mom's right. You should go inside. I'll see you Tuesday. Okay?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head harder. She grabbed the gate bars and wouldn't let go. "Emma Chen, if you don't go inside right now." Victoria was cut off by the photographer calling out, "Mrs. Chen, is it true you're letting your daughter form an inappropriate attachment to city workers? What do the therapists say about this unconventional approach?" Victoria spun toward him, fury blazing in her eyes. "Get off my property before I call the police." "Public street, ma'am. First Amendment. Just doing my job." "Your job is harassing a 7-year-old child." "My job is reporting the truth. And the truth is..." Marcus stepped in front of the gate, blocking the photographer's view of Emma. "The truth is, a little girl lost her father and she's trying to heal. That's not news. That's her private life. So why don't you take your camera and find a story that doesn't involve traumatizing a kid?" The photographer lowered his camera, smirking. "And who are you?" "The boyfriend." Marcus felt Victoria stiffen behind him. Emma made a small distressed sound. "I'm nobody," Marcus said evenly. "Just a guy doing his job. Same as you. Difference is, my job helps people. Yours hurts them. So maybe think about that before you click that button again." "Marcus?" Victoria's voice was tight. "It's fine. Let's just..." "It's not fine. This isn't okay." Marcus turned back to Emma, who was now crying silently, still gripping the bars. "Sweetheart, I need you to be brave right now. I need you to go inside with your mom, so this man can't take any more pictures of you. Can you do that for me?" Emma looked at him, betrayed and heartbroken. "I'll be here Tuesday, I promise. But right now, you need to protect yourself. And sometimes protecting yourself means walking away even when it's hard." Emma released the bars slowly. She looked at her mother, then at Marcus, then at the photographer who was still clicking away. Then she turned and ran into the house, Thomas clutched to her chest, moving faster than Victoria had seen her move in years. Victoria rounded on Marcus the moment Emma was gone. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I wanted to keep this quiet. Now it's going to be all over the internet by tonight. The board will see it. The investors will see it. Do you have any idea what kind of liability this creates?" Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Liability. That's what this is to you, Emma. Connecting with someone is a liability. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because it sounds like you're more worried about your reputation than your daughter's healing. Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what it's like to live under this kind of scrutiny. Every decision I make gets analyzed. Every mistake gets magnified. And now, some photographer is going to write a story about how the grieving billionaire is so desperate and unstable that she's letting strange men have unsupervised contact with her vulnerable child. Strange men, is that what I am now? Victoria's face flushed. I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, you did. Because when push comes to shove, I'm still just the garbage man. Good enough for 10 minutes at the gate when nobody's watching, but a PR nightmare when the cameras come out. That's not fair. You know that's not what this is about. Then what is it about, Victoria? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're willing to help Emma heal as long as it doesn't inconvenience you. But the minute there's a cost, the minute your pristine image might get a little tarnished, suddenly, I'm the problem. You're not the problem. The problem is that I have responsibilities to my company, to my employees, to my investors, and I can't just ignore those because my daughter made a friend. She didn't make a friend, Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. She found someone who doesn't treat her like a broken thing that needs fixing. But I guess that's not worth protecting if it might cost you a few points in the stock market. Victoria's hand shot out before she even knew what she was doing. The crack of her palm against Marcus's face echoed down the pristine street. They both froze. Marcus's cheek blazed red. Victoria's hand trembled. The photographer's camera clicked rapid fire, capturing everything. And from the doorway of the mansion, a small voice, rough with disuse, barely more than a whisper, but unmistakably real, cut through the morning air. Stop. The world stopped turning. Victoria's hand was still raised, frozen in the air, where it had made contact with Marcus's face. Marcus stood motionless, the red mark blooming across his dark skin. The photographer's camera hung silent for the first time since he'd arrived. Luis had climbed out of the truck and was halfway to the gate, stopped mid-stride. And Emma stood in the doorway, Thomas dangling from one hand, her mouth still open from the word that had just escaped. Stop. It came out cracked and small, like a rusted hinge finally giving way. But it was real. It was her voice. After 3 years, 2 months and 24 days of silence, Emma Chen had spoken. Victoria turned toward her daughter, hand dropping to her side. Emma? Did you just stop fighting? Emma's voice was stronger this time, urgent and desperate. She walked down the steps, moving toward the gate with Thomas clutched to her chest. Please, stop. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept coming, kept talking, words tumbling out like water breaking through a dam. Mommy's scared. Marcus is scared. Everybody's scared and everybody's fighting, and I don't want you to fight. I don't want Marcus to go away. I don't want Mommy to be sad anymore. I just want... Her voice broke. I just want us to stop being broken. Victoria's legs gave out. She sank to her knees right there on the marble steps, hands covering her face. Oh my God. Oh my God, baby, you're talking. I'm scared, Mommy. Emma's voice shook, but didn't stop. I've been scared for so long, and I didn't know how to say it, because saying it makes it real. And if it's real, then Daddy's really gone, and you're really sad, and I can't fix it. I can't fix any of it. Marcus moved without thinking. He crouched down at the gate eye level with Emma on the other side of the bars. His cheek still stung from Victoria's slap, but he ignored it. Emma, look at me. You listening? She nodded, wiping her eyes with Thomas's ear. You don't have to fix anything. That's not your job. Your job is to be 7 years old. To play and draw pictures and be sad when you need to be sad. The grown-ups. We're supposed to fix ourselves. You're not responsible for your mom's happiness or my feelings or any of it. You hear me? But Mommy cries at night. I hear her through the wall. And if I talk, she cries more because she's happy, but also sad because it reminds her of Daddy, and I don't know which crying is which anymore. Victoria made a sound like something had torn inside her chest. She crawled down the steps toward the gate, not caring about the marble scraping her knees, or the photographer who had started clicking again, or anything except getting to her daughter. Baby, listen to me. Listen to me. Victoria's voice was raw. You are not responsible for my tears. Not the happy ones or the sad ones or any of them. I cry because I'm grieving. I cry because I miss your father. I cry because I love you so much it physically hurts. But none of that, none of it is your fault or your burden to carry. Then why did you stop tucking me in? Emma's question came out small and wounded. After Daddy died, you stopped reading me stories and tucking me in and sitting with me when I had nightmares. You left me alone. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. I thought you wanted space. You stopped asking me to stay. You'd turn toward the wall when I came in your room. I thought I was making it worse by being there. I turned away because you looked so sad, and I didn't want to make you sadder. But I wanted you to stay. I always wanted you to stay. I just didn't know how to ask. So you stayed silent. Marcus's voice was gentle, because silence felt safer than risking the wrong words. Emma nodded hard. And then it got easier to not talk. And then I forgot how. And then 3 years happened and I was stuck, and I didn't know how to get unstuck until... She looked at Marcus. Until you talked to me like I wasn't broken. Like being quiet was okay. Like I was okay just the way I was. You are okay, Marcus said firmly. You were always okay. You were just hurting. There's a difference. The photographer called out from across the street. This is incredible. Mrs. Chen, can you tell us what triggered your daughter's breakthrough? Was it the experimental therapy? Is the garbage man part of some new treatment program? Victoria's head snapped toward him, fury blazing in her red-rimmed eyes. If you print one word of this, if you put my daughter's pain on display for entertainment, I will bury you in lawsuits so deep your grandchildren will still be paying legal fees. Do you understand me? Freedom of press, ma'am. Public interest story. There is nothing of public interest about a traumatized child speaking for the first time in 3 years. That's her private medical information. That's her healing. And if you steal that from her to sell clicks, you're not a journalist. You're a vulture. Luis stepped forward, all 6'3" and 240 pounds of him. I think the lady asked you to leave, and I think you should probably listen before I accidentally trip and drop this very heavy trash bin on your very expensive camera. The photographer hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Then he lowered the camera and backed away, still muttering about First Amendment rights. But he left. That was what mattered. Victoria turned back to Emma, who was crying again. Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry I tried to fix you instead of just loving you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to protect me from your own feelings. That's not how this is supposed to work. I don't know how it's supposed to work. Emma's voice cracked. I don't remember anymore. I just know everything hurts, and it's been hurting for so long, and I'm tired, Mommy. I'm so tired of being sad. I know, baby. Me too. But you know what? We're going to figure this out. Together. No more me hiding in my office. No more you hiding in your silence. We're going to sit in this grief together, and feel it together, and get through it together. Okay. Emma wiped her face. Can Marcus help? Victoria looked at Marcus, who was still crouched at the gate, his face unreadable. The handprint on his cheek had started to fade, but the damage she'd done was written all over his expression. Wariness, hurt, the careful distance of someone who'd been burned and wasn't sure if he could trust the fire not to strike again. "That's up to Marcus," Victoria said quietly. I crossed a line I had no right to cross. I let my fear turn into violence, and there's no excuse for that. None." Marcus stood slowly. "You hit me. I know. In front of your daughter, in front of that photographer, in front of witnesses. I know, and I'm God. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I was terrified and angry and I took it out on you, and that's inexcusable. If you want to press charges, I understand. If you want to report me to the city and get assigned to a different route, I understand. If you never want to speak to any of us again, I understand that too. What I want," Marcus said carefully, "is for you to understand why that was so damaging. Not just to me, to Emma. She just watched her mother, the person who's supposed to model how to handle conflict, resort to physical violence because she couldn't control her emotions. What message does that send her?" Emma's eyes were huge. She looked from Marcus to her mother and back again. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "That violence is an acceptable response to fear. That powerful people can hit less powerful people when they're angry. That I'm no better than—" She stopped herself. "You're right. You're absolutely right. Emma baby, what I did was wrong. Adults don't hit people ever, no matter how scared or angry we are. I made a terrible choice, and I'm going to have to live with that. But I need you to know that's not okay. What I did is never okay." "Daddy used to say everybody makes mistakes," Emma said softly. "He said the important part is saying sorry and meaning it and trying not to do it again." Victoria's eyes filled. "Your daddy was a smart man." Emma looked at Marcus, her small face serious beyond her years. "Marcus, are you going to leave because of what Mommy did?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Emma's desperate face, at Victoria's devastated expression, at the gate between them that was starting to feel less like a barrier and more like the only thing keeping him from getting too involved in a situation that could cost him everything. He thought about Jordan waiting at home for Marcus to pick him up for their Saturday breakfast tradition. About his classes, and his job, and his carefully constructed life that didn't have room for complicated entanglements with wealthy women who hit first and apologized later. But he also thought about what Sarah used to say. "Grace isn't deserved, Marcus. That's what makes it grace. You give it to people who mess up because you know you'll mess up too someday, and you'll need someone to give it back." "I'm not leaving," Marcus said finally. "But things need to change. This," he gestured between himself and Victoria, "can't happen again. I'm not a punching bag. I'm not a project. I'm a human being who's trying to help a kid because I've been where she is. But I've got boundaries, and you just steamrolled right over them." "I know, you're right. What can I do? How can I make this right?" "You can start by figuring out what you're actually afraid of, because this isn't about the photographer or the board or your reputation. This is about something deeper. And until you face that, you're going to keep hurting the people around you." Victoria flinched. "I'm afraid of losing her. I'm afraid that if I let her get too attached to you, you'll leave and she'll break all over again. I'm afraid that I'm not enough. That I'll never be enough. That Thomas was the good parent and I was the backup, and now that he's gone, Emma's stuck with second best." The words hung in the air, raw and honest and painful. Emma moved before anyone could stop her. She pushed through the still unlocked gate when had someone unlocked it and threw herself at her mother. "You're not second best, you're Mommy. And Daddy loved you and I love you, and you're not a backup. You're just you, and that's enough. You're enough, Mommy. You're enough." Victoria caught her daughter and held on, both of them crying. Both of them finally saying the things they should have said 3 years ago. Marcus felt his throat close up. He turned away, started walking back to the truck. This was a mother-daughter moment. He didn't belong here. "Marcus, wait." Victoria's voice stopped him. "Please, don't go." He turned. Victoria was still holding Emma, but she was looking at him with something that looked like desperation. "I need to say something, and I need you to hear it. Can you give me that?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "When Thomas died, I built walls, huge walls. I threw myself into work because work was controllable. I could make deals and build companies and earn money and control outcomes. But Emma, I couldn't control her grief, couldn't fix her pain, couldn't make her better, and it terrified me. So I hired people to fix her, threw money at the problem, tried to buy a solution. But that's not how healing works. You can't buy it. You can't control it. You can only show up and be present and do the hard work of sitting in the pain. And I didn't know how to do that. I still don't really. But you do. And Emma needs that. She needs someone who knows how to sit in the hard places without trying to make them easier. And I'm begging for you to keep being that person for her. Not as an employee. Not as some kind of therapeutic intervention. Just as someone who cares. Can you do that?" Marcus looked at Emma, who was watching him with those Thomas Chen eyes full of hope. He thought about Jordan and the scholarship applications and his own complicated life. He thought about boundaries and self-preservation and all the reasons this was a bad idea. Then he thought about what healing actually required. Presence. Consistency. Grace. "I'll keep showing up," he said quietly. "Tuesday and Friday mornings. But I need something from you too. Anything. Stop trying to control this. Stop managing it and strategizing it and turning it into another project to complete. Emma's healing is going to be messy and non-linear, and there are going to be setbacks. You need to be okay with that. Can you do that?" Victoria drew a shaky breath. "I can try. I don't know if I'll be good at it, but I can try." "That's all any of us can do." Marcus looked at Emma. "You did good today, brave girl. Using your voice, telling the truth. That took courage." "It was scary," Emma admitted. "The important things usually are. But you know what? You just proved to yourself that you can do scary things. Remember that." Emma nodded. Then she asked, "Can I meet Jordan?" "Sometime I want to meet your son. I want to tell him thank you for sharing his dad with me." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. "I think Jordan would like that. Let me talk to him first, make sure he's comfortable with it. But yeah, I think we can make that happen." Victoria looked between them. "Would you both like to come to dinner tomorrow night?" "Nothing fancy. Just the four of us, if that's not too weird." Marcus laughed a surprised sound. "Lady, we crossed the weird threshold about 20 minutes ago. But yeah, dinner sounds good. I'll check with Jordan." 7 o'clock. "We'll be here." Victoria stood still, holding Emma's hand. "Marcus, I thank you for not giving up on us, for showing me what I was doing wrong, for being patient with a woman who clearly doesn't deserve it." "Everyone deserves grace," Marcus said. "Even the people who forget to give it to themselves." He climbed into the truck. Luis was grinning. "Man, that was the wildest garbage route I've ever been on. You basically just got invited to dinner at a billionaire's mansion." "Don't remind me. I don't even know what fork to use at those kinds of places. Start from the outside and work your way in. My wife made me learn when her sister married that lawyer. You'll be fine." Marcus wasn't so sure, but as they pulled away from the Chen mansion, he looked in the side mirror. Emma and Victoria were still standing at the gate waving. Emma was smiling, really smiling. And Victoria had her arm around her daughter, holding her close instead of at arm's length. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not perfect, not controlled. Just real people doing the hard work of showing up for each other. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Victoria. Maria gave me your number from the city directory. I hope that's okay. I wanted to say thank you again. And to let you know, I called the newspaper that photographer works for. They've agreed not to run the photos or the story. Emma's privacy is protected. I should have done that immediately instead of taking my fear out on you. I'm sorry. See you tomorrow at 7. V." Marcus stared at the text, then he typed back. Apology accepted. Tell Emma I'm proud of her. See you tomorrow. M. He put his phone away and leaned his head back against the seat. Sarah's voice echoed in his memory, something she'd said years ago when he was angry about a neighbor's complaint about Jordan making too much noise. Marcus, honey, hurt people. Hurt people. But healed people heal people. Don't let someone else's pain make you forget your own healing. And don't let your own pain make you forget to help others heal. He'd been a hurt person for a long time after Sarah died. But somewhere along the way, sitting on Jordan's bedroom floor and learning to be present in grief, he'd started healing. And now maybe he could help 2 other hurt people do the same. It wasn't going to be easy. Victoria Chen had a lifetime of control issues to unlearn. Emma had years of trauma to process. And Marcus had his own limits, his own life, his own kid to raise. But maybe that was okay. Maybe healing didn't require perfection. Maybe it just required showing up. Tuesday and Friday mornings. Same time, same place. He'd show up. That night, Marcus told Jordan about the dinner invitation. They were sitting at their small kitchen table splitting a pizza because Marcus had been too exhausted to cook. So, let me get this straight, Jordan said, mouthful of pepperoni. You got slapped by a billionaire, her kid started talking for the first time in 3 years, and now we're having dinner at their mansion. That's the short version, yeah. Dad, your life is wild. Tell me about it. Jordan was quiet for a moment, picking at his pizza crust. Is this weird? Me sharing you with this girl? Marcus set down his slice. Is it weird for you? I don't know. Kind of like she needs you because she lost her dad, and I need you because I lost my mom. We're like grief siblings or something. Grief siblings, I like that. But what if you like her more than me? The question came out small, and Marcus's heart broke. Jordan, look at me. Marcus waited until his son met his eyes. You are my son. Mine. Nothing and nobody will ever change that. Emma's a kid who needs some help, and I can give it because I understand what she's going through. But you're my whole world, my priority, my person. Always. Got it. Jordan nodded, but his eyes were still uncertain. How about this? Marcus said. Tomorrow at dinner, you and Emma can talk. And if at any point you're uncomfortable or you want to leave, we leave. No questions. No guilt. Your feelings matter just as much as hers do. What if she's weird? She's 7. All 7-year-olds are weird. What if she's rich people weird? Marcus laughed. Then we'll handle it together. But Jordan, I think you'll like her. She's been through something hard just like you, and she's brave just like you. Give her a chance. Jordan considered this. Okay, but if she serves something gross like caviar or snails, we're getting burgers on the way home. Deal. They shook on it, and Marcus felt the knot in his chest ease slightly. This was going to work. It had to work. Because 3 broken people had just collided, and the only way forward was together. Saturday evening arrived faster than any of them were ready for. Marcus stood in front of his closet at 6:15, staring at 3 shirts he'd laid out on the bed like they were evidence in a trial. Jordan sat cross-legged on the floor, eating chips and offering commentary. The blue one makes you look like you're going to a funeral. It's Navy. Navy is professional. Dad, you're going to dinner, not a job interview. Wear the green one. Mom always said it made your eyes look nice. Marcus picked up the green shirt, held it against his chest. Your mom said that? Yeah, on your anniversary 3 years ago. You wore it to that restaurant. She liked the Italian place with the weird name. She told Aunt Lisa you looked handsome enough to marry all over again. Jordan's voice caught slightly. I heard her on the phone when I was supposed to be asleep. Marcus sat down on the bed, still holding the shirt. You miss her. Every day. But it's different now. Like it doesn't hurt as sharp as it used to. Is that bad? Does that mean I'm forgetting her? No, son. That means you're healing. Your mom wouldn't want you to hurt forever. She'd want you to remember her and smile, not remember her and break. Jordan nodded, grabbed another chip. Do you think about her when you talk to Emma's mom? The question caught Marcus off guard. What do you mean? I mean Mrs. Chen is pretty, and she's sad like you were sad. And Emma needs a dad kind of like I needed a mom for a while. I just wondered if you know. If I what? If you like her. Like her. Marcus laughed, surprised. Jordan, I've known the woman for 3 weeks, and she slapped me yesterday. That's not exactly the foundation of romance. But you forgave her. You don't forgive people you don't care about. Marcus pulled the green shirt on, started buttoning it slowly. I forgave her because holding on to anger would hurt Emma. And because your mom taught me that grace is something you give, not something people earn. That's different than liking someone. But you do like her, I can tell. I like that she's trying. I like that she admitted she was wrong. I like that she's putting Emma first, even though it's hard for her. But Jordan, listen to me. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not trying to replace your mom. I'm just trying to help a kid who reminds me of you when you were hurting. That's all this is. Jordan studied him with eyes that were too knowing for 13. Okay, Dad. Whatever you say. I mean it. I believe that you believe it. Jordan stood brushed chip crumbs off his jeans. I'm wearing my good shoes, the ones Grandma sent for Christmas. But if Emma's weird, I'm taking them off and we're leaving. Fair enough. They pulled up to the Chen mansion at exactly 7 o'clock. Marcus had made Jordan wipe the chip dust off his shirt 3 times and check his teeth twice. Now they sat in the truck, staring at the iron gate that stood open for the first time since Marcus had started working this route. That's a big house, Jordan said quietly. Yeah. Like really big. Like our entire apartment could fit in the garage big. Probably. Are you nervous? Marcus gripped the steering wheel. Terrified. Good. Me too. Glad we're doing this together. They climbed out of the truck. Marcus had worn his least scuffed boots and his good jeans, the ones without paint stains. Jordan had gelled his hair, something he usually only did for school pictures. They both looked like they were trying too hard, but Marcus figured that was better than not trying at all. Emma appeared at the door before they'd made it halfway up the walk. She was wearing a yellow dress and sneakers with light-up soles, Thomas tucked under one arm. Her hair was brushed and held back with clips, but she'd already pulled half of them out. You came. Her voice was still rough from disuse, but stronger than yesterday. I wasn't sure you'd come. I said I would, Marcus replied. I keep my promises. Emma's eyes shifted to Jordan, suddenly shy. Hi. Jordan shifted his weight, equally awkward. Hi, I'm Jordan. I know. Your dad talks about you all the time. He says you're good at basketball and math and that you make him laugh even when he's sad. Jordan blinked. He said that? Yeah. He says you're the best thing that ever happened to him. Jordan looked at Marcus, something soft and surprised in his expression. Marcus shrugged, embarrassed. It's true. Victoria appeared behind Emma, wearing jeans and a simple white blouse. Her hair was down, and she looked younger without the armor of business clothes. More vulnerable, more real. Marcus, Jordan, thank you for coming. Please come in. They followed her into a foyer that was bigger than Marcus's living room. Jordan's eyes went wide, taking in the chandelier and the curved staircase and the art on the walls that probably cost more than their annual rent. This is like a museum, Jordan whispered. A museum where nobody's allowed to touch anything, Emma said matter-of-factly. Mommy says we have to be careful because everything's expensive. But I think it's boring. I like your apartment better. Jordan's eyebrows shot up. You've never been to our apartment. I know, but your dad says you can open the fridge and the oven at the same time and you have to be creative about it. That sounds fun. Here we have 3 refrigerators and I don't even know why. We're only 2 people, Victoria laughed, surprised. When did you become so philosophical about refrigerators? When I started talking again and realized I have opinions about things. Emma grabbed Jordan's hand without asking permission. Come on. I want to show you my room. I have a telescope that can see all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge. Jordan glanced at Marcus, who nodded permission. The two kids disappeared up the stairs, Emma chattering about constellations, while Jordan tried to keep up with her sudden flood of words. Victoria and Marcus stood alone in the foyer. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Thank you for coming, Victoria said finally. I know it's awkward after everything. It's definitely something. Marcus looked around. You have a beautiful home. I have an expensive home. There's a difference. Beautiful implies warmth. This place has always felt more like a showroom than a home. Thomas hated it. He wanted something smaller, cozier. But I insisted we needed this for business dinners and image and all these things that don't matter now that he's gone. She walked toward what Marcus assumed was the kitchen, gesturing for him to follow. The kitchen was massive white marble and stainless steel and appliances that looked like they'd never been used. Maria usually cooks, but I gave her the night off. I thought it would be better if it was just the four of us, so I made pasta. Well, I attempted pasta. I'm not sure it's edible, but I tried. Marcus smiled despite himself. Can't be worse than my cooking. Jordan and I survive on cereal and pizza most nights. At least your food is probably identifiable. Mine might be a biohazard. She pulled a casserole dish from the oven, set it on the counter. The pasta was definitely overcooked, and the cheese was burned on top, but it smelled like tomatoes and garlic and effort. It looks great, Marcus lied. You're a terrible liar. Victoria grabbed plates from a cabinet. But thank you for trying. Can you grab glasses? They're in that cabinet. They worked in silence for a few minutes, setting the table in the dining room that could seat 20, but tonight would hold 4. Marcus found himself relaxing slightly. This was familiar territory, setting a table, preparing for a meal. Normal human things that didn't require wealth or status or knowing which fork to use. Can I ask you something? Victoria's voice was quiet. Sure. Why did you come? After everything I did yesterday. After I hit you and accused you of being a liability. Why did you give me another chance? Marcus set down the glasses carefully. Because Emma asked me to. Because Jordan needed to see that forgiveness is possible even when someone hurts you. And because I know what it's like to mess up badly when you're drowning and not know how to ask for help. I've been drowning for 3 years. I know. I could see it in your eyes from that first day. Same look I had after Sarah died. Like you were going through the motions of living but forgot why you were doing it. Victoria's hands stilled on the silverware. How did you stop drowning? I didn't. Not right away. For months I was barely keeping my head above water. Working 2 jobs, taking care of Jordan, trying to act normal when everything felt impossible. And then one day Jordan asked me why I never smiled anymore. And I realized he'd been watching me drown, and it was teaching him that grief meant giving up. So I made a choice. Not to be happy, I wasn't ready for that, but to be present. To show up for him even when showing up was the hardest thing I'd ever done. That's what you've been trying to teach me, to show up. Yeah, because Emma doesn't need perfect. She needs present. Same as Jordan needed. Same as all kids need. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Emma and Jordan appeared, both talking at once. Dad? Emma has a telescope that cost more than our truck. Mommy, Jordan taught me this cool handshake that his basketball team does. She's never had Lucky Charms. Can you believe that? He says he'll teach me to play horse if we can find a basketball hoop. Victoria and Marcus looked at each other and started laughing. The kids stopped, confused. What's funny? Emma asked. You two, Victoria said, wiping her eyes. You've known each other for 15 minutes and you're already finishing each other's sentences. Jordan's easy to talk to, Emma said simply. He doesn't make me feel weird about not talking for 3 years. He just treats me normal. That's because I know what it's like when everything's hard and people keep trying to make it easier, but they just make it worse, Jordan said. Sometimes you just need someone to sit with you in the hard parts and not try to fix them. Marcus met Victoria's eyes across the table. See, his expression said, "Kids get it. Why is it so hard for adults?" They sat down to dinner. The pasta was definitely overcooked, and the garlic bread was burned on one side, and the salad was drowning in dressing, but nobody mentioned it. They ate and talked and laughed, and slowly the awkwardness faded into something that felt almost like family. Emma told stories about her father, the way he used to make up silly songs about their dog, how he taught her to identify constellations, the camping trip where he accidentally set up the tent backward and they slept with their heads in the rain vestibule. She cried a little while talking, but she didn't stop. Victoria held her hand and cried too, and for the first time they grieved together instead of separately. Jordan talked about his mother's terrible jokes and her habit of singing off-key, and how she used to pack notes in his lunch that said things like, "You're braver than you know," and "Today's going to be a good day." Marcus hadn't known Jordan kept all those notes in a box under his bed until he mentioned it at dinner. "She'd be proud of you," Emma said softly to Jordan, "for being so brave after she died, for helping your dad, for being you." Jordan's eyes got shiny. "Your dad would be proud of you too, for finding your voice again, for being strong enough to talk even when it was scary." Victoria's hand found Marcus's under the table. Just for a second. A squeeze of gratitude or solidarity or something neither of them was ready to name. He squeezed back, then let go. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Emma pulled out a board game that was still in its wrapper, something Thomas had bought the week before he died, but they'd never opened, because opening it meant admitting he was gone and not coming back to play it. "Can we play it tonight?" Emma asked, looking at her mother. "All 4 of us, I think Daddy would like that. I think he'd want the game to get played." Victoria's voice was thick. "Yeah, baby, I think you're right." They played for 2 hours. Emma won twice, Jordan once, and Marcus and Victoria were terrible at it, but didn't care. They laughed and teased each other and ate ice cream straight from the carton because Victoria didn't have proper bowls out and nobody wanted to dirty more dishes. At 9:30, Jordan started yawning. Marcus checked his watch. "We should probably head out. School night tomorrow." "Do you have to go?" Emma's face fell. "Can't you stay a little longer?" "We'll come back," Jordan promised. "If that's okay with everyone? Maybe next weekend you can come to my basketball game and then we can hang out after." "Really?" Emma's whole face lit up. "Mommy, can we go to Jordan's basketball game?" Victoria looked at Marcus, asking permission with her eyes. He nodded. "Yeah, we'd like that." They walked to the door, Emma and Jordan still chattering about next weekend's plans. Victoria caught Marcus's arm gently. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For tonight. For Jordan. For everything." This was exactly what Emma needed. What we both needed. It was good for us too. Jordan's been carrying a lot alone. It's good for him to talk to someone who understands. "Marcus, Victoria hesitated. "I know this is complicated. I know our lives are completely different, and we come from different worlds, and there are 100 reasons this friendship shouldn't work. But I want you to know that what you've done for Emma for me, it's changed everything. You've given us hope when I didn't think hope was possible anymore. You did the hard part. You let yourself be vulnerable. You admitted you didn't have all the answers. That takes more courage than most people have. Will you really come back? Or was that just something you said to make Emma happy?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, saw past the perfect house and the wealth and the polished exterior to the terrified, grieving woman underneath, who was doing her best with impossible circumstances. "I'll come back. Tuesday and Friday mornings at the gate are still our time. But yeah, we can do this too. dinners, basketball games, whatever helps the kids, as long as Jordan's comfortable with it. And if you're comfortable with it, I'm getting there. But Victoria, I need you to understand something. I'm not a project. I'm not a charity case. I'm not someone you fix or save or add to your collection of things you've accomplished. I'm just a guy trying to help because I've been where you are, and I remember what helped. Okay. Okay, I understand. Equal footing. No power dynamics. Just friends helping each other. Yeah, friends. They shook hands formally and then both laughed at the absurdity of it. Emma and Jordan were watching from the truck, both grinning. They're plotting something, Marcus observed. Absolutely. We're going to have our hands full with those two. Good. Kids should plot. Means they're thinking about the future instead of just surviving the present. Marcus and Jordan drove home in comfortable silence. When they pulled into their apartment complex, Jordan finally spoke. Emma's cool. I like her. Yeah. She's been through something really hard, but she's not mean about it. Some kids who hurt, they hurt other people. But Emma's different. She's like soft in a strong way, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And Mrs. Chen is nice. She cried when Emma talked about her dad, but she didn't try to hide it. I liked that. Mom used to say people who hide their crying are the ones who hurt the most. Your mom was smart. Do you think we'll really go back? Or was that just something you said? Marcus parked the truck, turned to face his son. Do you want to go back? Yeah, I do. Emma asked me if I'd help her learn to ride a bike. Her dad was teaching her before he died and she never finished learning. I said I would. Is that okay? That's more than okay. That's beautiful, Jordan. You're a good kid. I learned from you, Dad. Jordan unbuckled his seatbelt. Can I ask you something weird? Always. Do you think Mom would be okay with this? With us spending time with Emma and her mom? Would she think we're trying to replace her? Marcus felt his throat tighten. Your mom would love this. She'd love that you're helping someone who's hurting. She'd love that we're building something good from something painful. And son, nobody could ever replace her. She's your mom. Always will be. But loving her doesn't mean we can't care about other people too. Love doesn't run out, it multiplies. Jordan nodded slowly. I think Emma and her mom are multiplying our love. Yeah, buddy, I think you're right. Inside their small apartment, Jordan went to his room and came back carrying the bear his mother had given him. Hope was threadbare and missing stuffing in one leg, but Jordan still slept with her every night. Emma showed me Thomas tonight, her rabbit that her dad gave her. She said Thomas helps her remember the good parts about her dad, not just the sad parts. Is that what Hope does for me? What do you think? Jordan hugged the bear. I think Hope reminds me that Mom wanted me to keep hoping even after she was gone. That good things can still happen, even when bad things happened first. That's exactly right. Do you have something like that? Something that reminds you of the good parts? Marcus thought about the coffee mug Sarah had painted for him, the one with the crooked handle that he still used every morning. About the recipe cards in her handwriting. About the garden she'd started that he kept alive, even though he had no idea what he was doing. Yeah, son, I've got lots of things. But mostly, I've got you. You're the best reminder of your mom, because you have her smile and her laugh and her huge heart. Every day with you reminds me of the good parts. Jordan wiped his eyes. I'm tired. Can we do pancakes tomorrow? Your famous pancakes? The ones I always burn? Those are the best ones. Marcus ruffled his son's hair. Deal. Now go to bed before you fall asleep standing up. After Jordan went to his room, Marcus sat on the couch with his phone. He pulled up Victoria's text from earlier. He typed, "Thank you for tonight. Jordan had a great time. See you Tuesday morning." The response came quickly. Emma is still talking about Jordan teaching her the handshake. I haven't heard her this happy in years. Thank you for giving us this. V. Marcus smiled. then typed, "We're giving each other this. That's what friends do. M." He put his phone away and leaned back against the couch cushions. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a garbage man on a routine route. Now he was somehow part of a makeshift family, built from grief and unlikely connections, and the simple act of showing up. Sarah would have loved this. She always said Marcus had a gift for seeing people who felt invisible, for making them feel heard. He'd argued with her about it, told her he was just being decent, but she'd insisted it was more than that. "You have the kind of heart that makes space for other people's pain without making it about you," she'd said once. "That's rare, Marcus. Don't ever lose that." He hadn't lost it. Even through his own grief and exhaustion and the million ways life had gotten harder after she died, he'd kept that part of himself. And now it was helping 2 people who desperately needed someone to see them. Tuesday morning came, and Marcus arrived at the Chen mansion to find both Emma and Victoria waiting at the gate. Emma was wearing her unicorn sweatshirt and holding Thomas. Victoria had 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning," Victoria said, handing Marcus one of the cups. "Peace offering. I figured you could use caffeine after the week you've had." Marcus accepted the cup, surprised. "Thank you. That's thoughtful." Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Marcus, I have something to tell you." "What's that, sweetheart?" "I talked to my therapist yesterday. Dr. Reeves came to the house, and I actually talked to him for the first time ever. I told him about Daddy, and about being scared, and about you and Jordan and Mommy, and he said, I'm making progress." "That's amazing, Emma. I'm so proud of you." "But I told him something else too." Emma looked between Marcus and her mother. "I told him that the best therapy wasn't the appointments. It was having people who don't treat me like I'm broken. People who just let me be me. He said that's called unconditional acceptance. And he said it's the most important kind of medicine." Victoria's eyes were shiny. "Dr. Reeves also said that sometimes the best healing happens outside his office. That community and connection matter more than clinical interventions. He suggested we focus less on formal therapy and more on Emma building relationships with people who make her feel safe." "So we're going to do that," Emma continued. "Mommy's going to work less. We're going to have family dinners. And we're coming to Jordan's basketball game on Saturday. And maybe Jordan and I can be real friends, not just grief siblings." "Grief siblings?" Victoria looked confused. "That's what Jordan called us," Emma explained. "People who understand loss because we've both lost someone. But he said we can be regular siblings too, the kind that play games and argue about whose turn it is and share secrets." Marcus looked at Victoria over Emma's head. She was smiling, really smiling for the first time since he'd met her. "Sounds like you 2 have it all figured out," Marcus said. "Not all of it," Emma admitted. "I still get sad sometimes, and I still don't want to talk some days. But now it's okay to be sad. Mommy says we're going to feel all the feelings instead of hiding from them." "That's brave. Both of you." Emma hugged Thomas tight. "Marcus, I want to tell you something important." "I'm listening." "You saved me, not by making me talk, but by making me feel like I didn't have to, and that's when I wanted to. So thank you. For being my friend, for sharing Jordan, for helping Mommy remember how to be a mommy again." Marcus crouched down eye level with her. "You saved yourself, sweetheart. I just showed up. You did the hard work." "We all did the hard work," Victoria added quietly. "All 4 of us. Together." Luis called from the truck. "Mark, we're burning daylight again." Marcus stood, drained his coffee. "I gotta go. But I'll see you both Saturday at the game, right?" "We'll be there," Victoria promised. "Front row, embarrassing Jordan with our cheering." "He'll love that more than he admits." Marcus walked back to the truck. Before climbing in, he turned and looked at the Chen mansion one more time. Emma and Victoria stood at the gate, arms around each other, both waving. The gate that had once separated their worlds now stood open, an invitation instead of a barrier. "You know what's funny?" Louise said as they pulled away. "What's that?" "When we started this route, you complained about rich people's trash, said it smelled worse because of all their fancy food going bad. But now you're having dinner at their mansions and fixing their families." Marcus laughed. "I'm not fixing anything. We're all just figuring it out together." "Whatever you say, man. But I'm telling you, 3 months ago that little girl wouldn't talk. Now she won't shut up. That's not nothing. That's a miracle." "Miracles don't come from one person," Marcus said. "They come from people showing up for each other when showing up is hard." Emma's talking because her mom finally learned to listen. And I just reminded them both that healing doesn't happen on anyone else's timeline. It happens when you're ready and when you feel safe enough to let it. Deep stuff for 7 in the morning. Yeah, well, garbage collection gives you time to think. They drove through Pacific Heights as the sun burned off the morning fog. Marcus thought about Emma finding her voice, about Jordan opening his heart to someone new, about Victoria learning to be present instead of perfect, about himself discovering that healing wasn't a destination, but a journey you took with the people brave enough to walk beside you. Sarah had been right. He did have the kind of heart that made space for other people's pain. But what she hadn't told him, what he was just now learning, was that making space for other people's pain somehow made room for his own healing too. Tuesday and Friday mornings. Same time. Same place. He'd keep showing up, and in showing up they'd all keep healing. Together.